There's been some talk about possibly Joshua using Jake Paul as a tune-up to fight you. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know about tune-up. I think Jake Paul knocks him out.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Well, by the sounds of it, there's 50 million reasons why Anthony Joshua's taking this fight. In my head, I never, ever thought this fight would happen. Why? Because of Anthony Joshua's desire to be in the history books, to be a three-time heavyweight champion of the world. To me, it shows me his desire. Pick up 50 million along the way. Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business.
Heavyweight pros have shared their predictions for the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight. Tyson Fury did not hesitate with his prediction for how this fight would play out. Tyson Fury told the Ring magazine a few months earlier that he didn't know about a tune-up and believed Jake Paul would knock him out. He said he thought Paul would knock AJ out, that AJ was a spent force while Paul was on the rise, and that he liked Paul's new heavyweight look, a bit chubby and a bit bulky. Fury went on to say that Paul had done a great job against the aging Chavez Jr., who had been a middleweight, and that he liked how Paul called out fighters across the full spectrum from featherweight to heavyweight, calling those Richter scale callouts.
There's been some talk about possibly Joshua using Jake Paul as a tune-up to fight you. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know about tune-up. I think Jake Paul knocks him out.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Why so? What impresses you about Jake Paul?
I just think Jake Paul would knock AJ out. I think AJ's a spent force, and I think Jake Paul's on the rise. And I like his new heavyweight look. Bit chubby, bit bulky.
In a surprise turn of events, Paul appeared to hint that him facing Joshua is not a foregone conclusion as he took to X to write, "Not holding my breath for 2025. Too many yes men." Joshua's last fight was a brutal knockout loss to Daniel Dubois at Wembley in 2024, and his long spell of inactivity has since pushed him out of the heavyweight rankings. After Paul's scheduled bout with Gervonta Davis was canceled this weekend, The Ring's Mike Coppinger reported that Paul and two-time world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua are now finalizing a deal for a Netflix fight on Friday, December 19th. The journalist reported that the deal was finalized for a professional heavyweight bout that would count on both fighters' official records. Eddie Hearn, Joshua's longtime promoter, publicly stated that the bout would be a real fight under Queensberry rules: 3-minute rounds, 1-minute rests, and 10-ounce gloves. It's been suggested that the Superfight purse could be a straight 50-50 split, netting both fighters a massive £70 million just for stepping into the ring. Paul declared he will beat Anthony Joshua's, claiming the Brit has no chin. And surprisingly, Fury, whose younger brother Tommy dealt Paul his only career defeat, is backing the problem child over his fellow Brit. The 28-year-old, who has faced opponents like Mike Tyson and Julio Cesar Chavez, presently has a professional boxing record of 12 victories and 1 loss. Joshua's promoter and Matchroom CEO Eddie Hearn told BBC Radio 5 that everyone has jumped the gun and that Joshua has a big fight with Tyson Fury planned for next year, despite the extensive rumors surrounding the deal. Hearn added, "We may run out in 2025. We were just going to have a low-key fight somewhere. If that is going to destroy the run of Mr. Paul and make tens of millions of dollars in the process, then maybe." Nothing is confirmed yet. Joshua, who was born in Watford, reportedly told Sport 1 that Fury has to fight him. Meanwhile, former world heavyweight title challenger Derek Chisora has issued a brutally honest prediction ahead of Anthony Joshua's fight with Jake Paul. In an interview with Seconds Out, British heavyweight Chisora asserted that AJ is going to kill Paul, in spite of the contradictory claims. The 41-year-old said, "Listen, I'm buzzing. We can lay that Jake Paul nonsense to rest. If that fight happens, somebody better go to jail. AJ is going to kill him. It's unfair. Someone has to go to jail." He further added, "Right now, Jake Paul will be watching the last fight that AJ had with Dubois, and he is going to jump on him. It's all about how AJ deals with the man in front of him. Whatever happens, it will be exciting. Paul hasn't got the power to knock out Joshua. Jake Paul goes home in an ambulance after that fight." Heavyweight contender Andy Ruiz shared his perspective with Covers, weighing in on Paul and speculating on what might happen if the two ever squared off in the ring. Boasting millions of YouTube followers, Paul is undeniably drawing fresh attention to the sport, a fact even Ruiz has recognized. However, the heavyweight didn't hold back when it came to commenting on the quality of opponents Paul has faced. Ruiz said, "For a minute, I thought it was good because it was getting boxing a lot of publicity. Everybody was making the sport more popular. But once he starts picking his fights, fighting older guys, smaller guys, it's kind of disrespectful. You know, I don't want to talk, but yeah, I think it's kind of disrespectful for him to choose smaller or older fighters." When asked who Ruiz would like to see Paul face, Ruiz said, "I think I would like for him to fight Andy Ruiz." Taking further aim at Paul, he said, "I think I would like to see him fight a tough fighter, somebody that's on his level and in the same weight class. I think the Davis bout would have been a good fight. If Gervonta would have been sticking and moving and counter-punching him, I don't know. Anything could happen in this sport, but I just want him to fight someone legit. When asked about how a potential fight would play out, he said, I think like 4 rounds. I think I would be pressuring him, hitting him in the body, feinting, throwing my combinations. I think 4 rounds. What once felt like sheer fantasy, mere hype meant to grab attention, now is plausible. Anthony Joshua, a former Olympic gold medalist and 2-time unified heavyweight champion, is aiming to re-enter title contention, though a fight with Paul would likely serve as little more than a warm-up and a lucrative side venture. Paul's boxing record boasts only 1 loss against fringe British-level fighter Tommy Fury, making the notion of him facing one of the top heavyweights of the past decade seem both absurd and perilous. Johnny Nelson also reacted to the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua announcement.
Business for Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional fighter here in the UK. Would he win a British title? No, I don't think so. So now they're putting this domestic level fighter in with a former heavyweight 2-time champion of the world. The weight is 245. So I think last time Anthony Joshua weighed around that was when he boxed Usyk. That means he's got to be fight fit on point, because his last fight he was 18 stone. I think it was 254 against Danny Dubois. So now he basically saying you've got to get yourself in position, get yourself fit, and get yourself ready for fight. It's not tiddlywinks. This is a fight. It's not a push and a pull.
Former cruiserweight world champion Tony Bellew is strongly opposed to the matchup, but shared with the Stomping Ground his prediction for how long the fight would last if it ever happened. He said, as long as Joshua wants it to. Simple as that. As long as he wanted to. The professional boxer will have the say in how long it goes. David Haye warned that no special rules will save Jake Paul from being brutally knocked out by Anthony Joshua, insisting a quick finish is the best the problem child can hope for. Despite facing criticism over the quality of his opposition, Paul has risen to become one of boxing's most talked-about figures. He boasts a record of 12 wins from 13 professional fights, with the majority of his opponents being retired MMA fighters. His most high-profile victory came last year against a 59-year-old Mike Tyson. Paul's lone loss was to Tommy Fury, a fellow novice better known for his time on Love Island than his boxing credentials. Joshua, a 2-time heavyweight champion and one of the most formidable fighters of his generation, is a very different prospect. It is a very easy fight for AJ in regards to the other options on the table. This isn't Tyson Fury. This isn't even Francis Ngannou. This is a cruiserweight who has had 13 fights, losing 1 to Tommy Fury, Haye told Metro. Speaking as a brand ambassador for HighBet, he added, AJ is an amateur champion, an Olympic gold medalist, a 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. This is a completely different proposition for Jake Paul, and I give him absolutely no shot if this fight is made. Even if the rounds are 2 minutes long, whatever the rules are, if AJ is allowed to punch him in the head, the fight goes as long as AJ wants it to. Many have voiced worries about Paul's safety if the bout proceeds, given Joshua's devastating power in both fists. Former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou experienced it firsthand when he faced Joshua in March 2024, falling almost instantly to a brutal knockout. Haye suggests that Paul's best chance lies in a swift, merciless ending, a scenario that could be his only hope of avoiding serious long-term injury. Haye said, boxing is a very tough sport at any level. You have to be careful for your health. You cannot be treating it as a place to learn some lessons when you are coming up against someone as dynamic and powerful as Anthony Joshua. The fight will be sanctioned, I'm sure, because everyone will earn millions. Paul's best bet is Joshua punches him so hard and ends it early. He further added, I think the chances of Jake Paul getting badly injured are slim because injuries tend to happen when you are taking a consistent and continued beating. When you've been weight drained and your head has been knocked around for 7 or 8 rounds. That is when the damage usually happens. But I think this fight will be a Ngannou type of finish, when AJ goes out and lights him up quickly. A sore head and a ruptured eye socket is the best he can hope for. I don't think Jake Paul is tough enough to get to the point where he is suffering real damage to his brain. Joshua has been absent from the ring for more than a year, following a crushing loss to Daniel Dubois in September 2024, a night when he had aimed to claim a 3rd world championship title. Several media outlets and retired fighters have already hinted that the 36-year-old could risk tarnishing his legacy by stepping into the ring with an opponent of Paul's stature. Boxing has a long history of flirting with the absurd, and this wouldn't be the first instance. The 2023 bout between Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou drew similar skepticism. Stuff happens in this sport, and I don't think it will make any difference to AJ's legacy. If anything, it will raise his stock if he goes out there and knocks him out in one round. No one is going to look down on his previous achievements. He just also become the guy who knocked out Jake Paul. I don't think we can begrudge him doing that. The announcement of this fight took many by surprise, largely because few expected Paul to step up against such a formidable and physically imposing opponent, especially while gearing up for a bout with Davis. While Davis and Joshua share similar levels of experience and acclaim in the sport, Joshua towers over Tank by roughly a foot and outweighs him by about 100 pounds. Given that Paul planned to face Joshua in less than 2 months, that calls for a very different strategy. Although Paul's recent remarks suggest a December clash with Joshua might be unlikely, everything points to a showdown between the two, potentially as early as January, with December still a possibility. Dana White, the UFC president, has long been one of Jake Paul's most vocal critics, with the pair exchanging barbed remarks over the years. That's why White's recent comments on a potential Paul versus Joshua clash, made shortly after UFC 322 wrapped on November 15th, were particularly intriguing. Dana White said at the press conference after UFC 322 that a Paul-Joshua fight was a bad idea, repeating that it was a bad idea, but adding that many people would watch it. When asked whether he would watch, he replied that he would, saying people knew what they were tuning in for and that he thought everyone would finally get what they'd been waiting for. White is obviously at the camp where Joshua will brutalize Paul, and he is eager to witness it firsthand.
Did you see the fight that's reportedly being worked on for December 19th in Miami?
Did I see the fight being worked on December 19th in Miami?
Yeah.
No.
Do you know which fight I'm talking about?
No.
Fair enough.
Oh, Jesus. That's a fucking bad idea. That's a bad idea. But let me tell you what. A lot of people will watch that one.
Will you watch it?
Sure. You know what everybody's tuning in for on that one. I think everybody's going to get what they've finally been waiting for.
The apparent mismatch, which Logan Paul's younger brother originally demanded in March, has already drawn criticism from fans. Jake Paul set his sights on a boxing champion with no chin after Canelo Alvarez rejected him. "I know my boundaries," the 28-year-old former Disney star said on his now-defunct podcast. He added, "I want to fight Anthony Joshua because I know I will beat Anthony Joshua's. He doesn't have a chin, and he's got no skill, and he's stiff. I love you, Anthony. We're friends. But I want to fight you." Rather than facing Joshua, Paul opted for a completely different challenge, taking on WBA lightweight champion Gervonta Davis, a 5'5" fighter who tips the scales a staggering 100 pounds lighter than the towering British star. Their show was abruptly canceled, even though they were scheduled to compete on November 14th. After Gervonta Davis was faced with a lawsuit, Jake Paul started looking for a new rival. An ex-girlfriend has accused Tank of battery, aggravated battery, false imprisonment, and intentionally causing emotional distress. Days later, Paul's promotional group called off the Davis fight after conducting an investigation. Most Valuable Promotions and Netflix have announced that Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis, originally scheduled for Friday, November 14th at the Kaseya Center in Miami, Florida, will no longer be moving forward. A statement read, Nakisa Bidarian, CEO of Most Valuable Promotions, was quoted as saying, "Our team has worked closely with all parties to navigate this situation responsibly. While we will not be moving forward with this event, our plan still remains for Jake Paul to headline an event on Netflix in 2025. Jake Paul's message, which is modeled after Muhammad Ali, may indicate that he totally agrees to fight Anthony Joshua and beat him. The 28-year-old posted a screenshot of an Ali speech, in which the boxing legend says, "All of you chumps are going to bow when I whoop him. The man's in trouble. I'm going to show you how great I am." The bout is anticipated to run for 8 rounds of 3 minutes each, with both fighters using 10-ounce gloves. Whatever the outcome, the result will be officially recorded on their professional fight records. Meanwhile, Jake Paul has formally confirmed one of the wildest matchups in recent boxing memory. He says he will face former 2-time world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua in a professional bout that will stream exclusively on Netflix on Friday, December 19th. Paul announced the deal on X and followed up with promotional posts confirming a kickoff press conference set for November 21st, saying, "Yes, it's real. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua will go head-to-head in a pro heavyweight fight live only on Netflix, Friday, December 19th. Jake also announced their first press conference date of November 21st, tweeting, "This Friday, I'm going to square him up." In another tweet, Jake said, "From Deji to Joshua, sup, The matchup appears to be a properly sanctioned professional heavyweight fight, not an exhibition, reportedly penciled in for Miami, and has already drawn huge media and fan attention because it represents a dramatic step up for Paul and a high-profile crossover payday for Joshua. How this plays out will depend on matchmaking, weight, rules, and the fighter's preparation. But the narratives are already set. Paul is chasing legitimacy and a defining win. Joshua is taking a high-profile, high-pay bout with far more to lose than to gain in reputational terms. And boxing fans will be watching to see whether this becomes a memorable spectacle or a cautionary mismatch. Expect the press conference on November 21st to sharpen the picture, and the Netflix broadcast on December 19th to be one of the year's most talked about sporting events. Joshua cannot weigh more than 245 pounds, but it has been established that the professional fight will take place over 8 rounds at heavyweight on Judgment Day. In his last 5 fights, the 36-year-old has weighed more than that limit. In August 2022, he was lighter at 244.5 pounds versus Alexander Usyk. Joshua said, "Jake or anyone can get this work. No mercy. I took some time out and I'm coming back with a mega show. It's a big opportunity for me. Whether you like it or not, I'm here to do massive numbers, have big fights, and break every record whilst keeping cool, calm, and collected. Mark my words, you'll see a lot more fighters take these opportunities in the future. I'm about to break the internet over Jake Paul's face." Paul added, "This isn't an AI simulation. This is Judgment Day, a professional heavyweight fight against an elite world champion in his prime. When I beat Anthony Joshua, every doubt disappears, and no one can deny me the opportunity to fight for a world title. To all my haters, this is what you wanted. To the people of the United Kingdom, I am sorry." Anthony Joshua piled on the drama on X, posting, "He's loco men," alongside a link to tickets, which Joshua says will be available on pre-sale from November 21st, with general sale opening the following day. The post underlines how quickly the bout has gone from online rumor to big-ticket event, with fans now able to snap up seats for what promises to be a polarizing night in Miami on December 19th. Matchroom Sport chairman Eddie Hearn added his own warning about what's at stake, saying, "They say be careful what you wish for. Kind of feel like that's all I need to say." 2 of the biggest names in the sport will collide on December 19th. Whilst I admire Jake's balls, he's going to find out the hard way in Miami. Hearn's remarks frame the fight as both a massive commercial draw and a potentially lopsided sporting contest, a high-profile gamble for both men. Taken together, Joshua's cheeky ticket push and Hearn's blunt assessment have hardened the narrative. This isn't just another crossover spectacle. It's being treated as a full-blown heavyweight showdown with real consequences for Jake Paul's credibility and for Joshua's public standing. With press conferences and pre-sale activity kicking off on November 21st, the build-up will now be about promotion, face-offs, and whether Paul's bravado can survive a true title-level test. Paul has defeated a variety of journeymen, boxers, and mixed martial arts athletes who were well past their prime. In his 2 most recent victories, he outpointed Julio Cesar Chavez in June and Mike Tyson last year. In February 2023, he suffered his lone defeat by split decision against Tommy Fury. With Joshua weighing in at 252 pounds for his most recent fight and the lightweight limit at 135 pounds, it is a significant step up to fight a heavyweight in a professional match. Since losing to Daniel Dubois via knockout at Wembley Stadium in September 2024, Joshua has not engaged in combat. Meanwhile, Frank Warren reacted to the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua announcement.
Thoughts? Well, my thoughts on it is that Jake Paul's had a lot of accusations over the years for a guy who's had no amateur fights. What's he had, about 10 or 12 fights? I'm not sure what he's had. And, you know, you look at the opposition he's had and people saying, when's he going to fight somebody? He stepped up. He's stepping up to a 2-time world champion, a genuine heavyweight, a proper heavyweight champion, and an active fighter. And this is a big moment for him, and you've got to take your hat off to him for that. As regarding AJ, I'm sure AJ's wants a fight back after that, that unbelievable loss he had against Daniel Dubois, which is quite an emphatic loss. He wants to come back, get himself, dip his toe in the water. He's going to get paid a lot of money for this. This fight's going to generate a lot of money because, for me, it's a fighter. Jake Paul's going to be a massive underdog against a big favourite, a big odds-on favourite. Can he do it or not? This is a car crash, and people will watch it because that's what people do at car crashes. That's what this is.
Nakisa Badarian, CEO of Jake Paul's most valuable promotions, pushed back on the skeptics, saying the idea of a Paul Joshua fight that was laughed off earlier this year has now become a reality. Badarian noted that plans accelerated after the collapse of a different matchup, arguing that MVP and Netflix have put together one of the biggest fights of all time. He added, "Everyone laughed when Jake Paul said in March that he wanted to fight AJ in 2026. Well, plans changed, and in under 2 weeks, MVP and Netflix have made one of the biggest fights of all time. Now, as only Jake Paul could and would do, he's fighting one of the most fearsome boxers in the world." He added, "Joshua has every advantage in this fight, except one, the delusional confidence of Jake Paul, and if anyone can shock the world, it's him." This is a global clash between two of the most recognizable figures in the sport, Jake, the face of boxing's new era, and Joshua, the king of UK boxing. Taken together, the statements from Badarian, Joshua, and Hearn set the narrative for the build. Paul is selling the upset and the spectacle. Joshua is using the platform to make a statement on his return, and promoters are racing to monetize what could be one of the year's most watched and most debated boxing events. Jake Paul's blockbuster showdown with Anthony Joshua will be a sanctioned professional heavyweight fight, not an exhibition, meaning the result will count on both men's official pro records, and the bout will be fought under recognized Queensberry professional rules. Promoters have agreed the bout will be 8 rounds of 3 minutes, fought with 10-ounce gloves, a shorter than typical world title distance but standard for a high-profile, non-title main event of this type. A key negotiating detail: Anthony Joshua will be required to meet a weight limit of 245 pounds for the fight, a notable caveat given Joshua's recent ring weights and power profile. That cap is intended to bring the two men closer in size for the contest. On paper, the mismatch is stark. Joshua arrives as the far more experienced heavyweight, a former 2-time unified world champion with a deep resume, while Paul is a fast-rising crossover star whose pro record is shorter but built on heavy promotion and careful matchmaking. Still, promoters and Paul's team insist this is a legitimate, sanctioned test rather than a made-for-TV exhibition. How it changes the narrative. Because this is a professional result that will go on the fighter's records, and because standard Queensberry rules apply, a decisive finish, especially a knockout of Paul, would carry far greater consequences for Paul's credibility and future matchmaking than an exhibition-style loss would. Conversely, an upset would instantly shift the calculus around Paul's standing in heavyweight boxing. Meanwhile, Tommy Fury slammed this fight.
But if I can beat Jake Paul, then excuse my French, what the fuck is Anthony Joshua going to do to Jake Paul? I think my dad said that AJ could beat him with his prick, and I completely will back that up. Even if AJ had a broken arm in there, it still wouldn't go past a minute. To be quite honest with you, and as a safety aspect, there's no way that fight can go ahead. At the end of the day, my God, how good does it make me look? He gets beat by Jake Paul. Well, that automatically makes me 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, doesn't it? There's no proper way. I've got to laugh about it. How are we even talking about this? He got his nut boxed off by me a little over 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden he's talking about fighting Anthony Joshua. It's like, come on. Like, you can't be serious. You can't beat me. I'm not Anthony Joshua, am I? So it's just ludicrous. It really is.
Moreover, the early betting markets have already made one thing clear. Anthony Joshua is a very heavy favorite. Those details matter for bettors and pundits alike. Shorter fights and smaller glove sizes tend to slightly favor the harder puncher and increase the value of early round finish markets, while a capped weight for Joshua is designed to make the contest look and feel nearer to an even contest on paper, even if the experience gap remains enormous. How do the bookmakers see it? Bookmakers opened steeply in favor of Joshua, with early lines placing him as a prohibitive favorite across the market. Aggregators and betting sites show Joshua priced in the region of -1,000 to -1,250 or shorter in many books, while Jake Paul opened as a sizable underdog, variously listed from roughly +550 to +800, depending on the bookmaker. Those odds imply Joshua has something in the order of a 90% plus chance of victory in many markets. Prop markets are reflecting the perceived mismatch as well. Early money has pushed markets toward an AJ stoppage, with some books making a first-round stoppage one of the favored outcome props. Line movement is likely as the fighters make weight, the press conferences play out, and sharper bettors take positions, so expect the numbers to shift in the coming weeks. So, that's all from today's video. If you enjoyed it, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell icon so you never miss our upcoming videos. Stay tuned, and we will catch you in the next video.